The trail of the 3rd Army and the 19th Tactical Air Command of the 8th Air Force is marked by more than 40,000 white crosses. 40,000 dead Americans.
We were young and soldiers called to dedicate our lives in the name of God and country. Do what's just for us, go do what's right. A hot band of brothers waiting on our chance to add one more page unto the victory dance. Here am I, Lord, send me, send me. Victory lies in the spirit of the lives of the men who died for me.
Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send, and who will go for us? And I said, here am I. Send me.
This is Michael Broderick, Marine Corps veteran, actor, and Gallant Few board member. You are listening to the New American Veteran on Vets on Media. Now here's Carl Monger.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to the New American Veteran. Today is Wednesday, April 23rd, 2014, and I want to let everybody say hi to my mom, who is co-hosting the show with me today. Mom, say hi.
Hi, everyone. Really happy to be able to do this today.
The New American Veteran's purpose is to talk about veteran transition, raising awareness of issues, challenges, and resources, and to encourage veterans to get active within their communities, creating an environment that welcomes and integrates returning veterans. Today's show is dedicated to Roy Matsumoto, Merrill's Marauder, who passed away the day before yesterday at the age of 100. Matsumoto is a member of the Ranger Hall of Fame, and Army Times reports also that one soldier, Specialist Carey Daniluk, 27 years of age, of Cairo, Texas, died of wounds April 15th. He was assigned to 2nd Battalion, 87th Infantry, 10th Mountain Division. The Army Times also reports that there were 3 wounded in action, and a lot of times you don't hear about that last part. So remember, today's show is dedicated to Merrill's Marauder Matsumoto and also to the soldier that fell last week, Specialist Carey Daniluk. I want to also say congratulations to Army Ranger and Special Forces soldier Tim Kennedy for his outstanding victory over Michael Bisbing, April the 16th. And I want to finally say congratulations to my son-in-law, David John Risner, on his upcoming promotion at the Pentagon to Chief Master Sergeant. Hopefully I'll be able to be there and watch that happen. First Saturday's coming up. You guys have heard me talk about First Saturday, probably until you're sick of hearing me talk about First Saturday, but it's an incredibly important event. And I want you to hear Brandy Mai talk about the First Saturday event in Savannah, Georgia.
This is Brandy Mai. Join us for the First Saturday Veterans Breakfast every first Saturday of the month at Perkins Restaurant on I-95 and Highway 204 at 9 a.m. If you want to find us on Facebook, look up facebook.com/groups/First Saturday Savannah. See you there.
So First Saturday is a really easy concept. You identify a place in your community. First look online, see if there's one already scheduled. If there is not, then identify a place in your community, like I did here, little community of Roanoke, Texas. There's a Dove Creek Cafe, which is the little hole-in-the-wall greasy spoon, ideal place for veterans to get together, and has great chow, by the way. And then you put it out on social media. 9 o'clock, first Saturday of the month. Come sit down, have a cup of coffee with me and any other veterans that show up. I am not going to be at this one because I'm going to be traveling on the first Saturday of the month, and I'm going to try and make one of the first Saturday breakfasts in the Washington, D.C. area because they are popping up all over the place. If you don't have one in your neck of the woods, start one. And if you do have one in your neck of the woods, then by all means, please go and be a part of that.
Hey guys, this is Tom Memento from Ranger Up, and you're listening to Carl Monger on Veterans on Media for the Gallant Few.
I want to say thanks. Ranger Up is one of the sponsors of this program. And also there are some other organizations out there that have done some nice things for us recently. Ranger S5, RangerS5.com did some memorial stickers last week that contained the names of every regimental ranger that has died in action. since 1974. Every one of them that has been killed in action, and they sold. I don't remember exactly what the total count was, but the result was close to a $400 donation to Gallant Fuse. So organizations like that, every little bit helps, and we greatly appreciate that. If you did not get a chance to get your sticker, guess what? They're sending me a box of them, and we'll announce here pretty soon for every donation that gets made, we'll send a sticker out to you. Also, news of note today, I saw that the United States is sending 4 company-sized units, infantry units, I believe initially from the 173rd Airborne Brigade, and then they're going to be replaced or maybe joined by the 82nd to Poland. And their purpose is to reassure NATO allies in light of the Russian aggression. So when everybody thought the Cold War was over, peace was at hand, and everybody's going to be holding hands and singing Kumbaya, now we've got airborne troopers going over to stand there eyeball to eyeball and look across the border at the Russians. Sounds like something from 30 years ago, doesn't it? Okay, before I bring my guest on the line here, I would like to ask you to please have a moment of silence in honor of Merrill's Marauder Roy Matsumoto and Specialist Carrie Daniluk of the 10th Mountain Division. All right, now let's see if modern technology is going to work, and I'm going to send out an invitation to see if we can do this Google Chat on the live broadcast with Diana Veseth-Nelson, who is the founder and executive director of Invisible Wound. Hey there, I see she just popped up on the line. Diana, are you there? We have to wait just a moment for the Google ties to make a complete link up. I see you on the line. Are you there? Can you hear me? Hello, I think I hear you now. Diane, are you there?
Hi, yes, how are you? I figured I wouldn't invite you quite into my bathroom. I'm just rearranging.
Well,
How are you doing?
We're glad that you joined. Thank you very much. I'm going to read a little bit about your bio, and then let's talk about what you're doing, because I did not read the bio yet. But let's see. I have a slideshow. While I'm reading your bio, bear with me for just a second, and I'm going to put this up. It's the photographs that you sent to me, and we'll play those for a minute, and then maybe you can tell us a little bit about the significance of that as we get into what you do. Sure. So here's your bio. Diana is a military spouse and veterans advocate and a nonprofit professional with experience in executive management and program development. Her husband, Army Captain retired Adrian Veseth-Nelson, returned from combat a decorated hero with 3 Bronze Stars for Valor and a 1,000-yard stare. Discovering a desperate and shared need in the veteran community to provide a voice for those suffering from the invisible wounds of war, they founded Invisible Wound. A rising advocate of veterans and their families, she has been involved in several speaking engagements and panel discussions as an expert on the topic. These include participation in several PTSD-focused documentaries, participation in panels for the Mental Health Alliance, Theater of War, Military Pathways, and an expert witness at a 2012 congressional hearing. As Executive Director of Invisible Wound, Diana's focus is to work on healing, connection, and relief for those suffering in silence. Invisible Wound is currently working towards implementing a retreat and continued care model, providing veterans and their families with real solutions for treating the veteran and the families of those who served. So there, did you ever have anybody read your bio live online before?
No, it's fantastic. I appreciate it. That was great.
Well, okay, so tell me a little bit about, as those pictures were scrolling across, were you able to see those?
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Give me a little background on what those pictures were, and then we can talk about what your story is in the PTSD thing.
Certainly, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having us here. It's such a great opportunity to communicate. Anytime we get to advocate for veterans and talk a little bit about what we want to do, it's just such an opportunity, so thank you. The photos that we actually shared with you, that you put up there, they're just a couple of combat photos that my husband had taken when he was in Iraq. He was in Iraq from 2005 and from 2005 to 6, and then he was deployed again in 07 to 08. So some of those
deployments into Iraq.
Mm-hmm. He calls the second one his bonus tour because he got the 15-month deployment. Oh, that's what he won that time. And those photos are, some soldiers interacting with dogs there. There were a lot of feral dogs in Iraq. And then there were some IED photos there too. So just some photographs that were taken during his first deployment, actually, because that's when he was part of the more active combat unit.
So he came back, you and I were talking about this on the telephone earlier, from his first deployment, and they were asking him questions as he went through the redeployment process, and you know, did anything bothering you? Are you sleeping okay? And you know, you told me, what was the answer to that?
Well, I could actually go back a little bit. So when my husband was deployed his first time, he was part of the Quick Reaction Force for Western Baghdad. The second time, his deployment was in Kirkuk, and he was an advisor to the Iraqi army. So the experiences were a little bit different, but not both not contributing to the final result, which was post-traumatic stress disorder, and with very little recourse or options to treat that. Somewhere along his first deployment, the combat stress team spoke to him about a few different incidences that he had gone through and said, you know, it might be post-traumatic stress disorder, let's discuss it. But because he was on a remote base, there was no follow-up care, which I think is interesting. And then it was not something that was addressed until he came back. And what you're talking about, Carl, is that checklist that all military get when they get back. Have you seen violence? Have you had violence done onto you or to others? Did you see anything, you know? And that's the last point between seeing your family members or going and seeing a therapist or a psychiatrist. And really, you know, when you're redeploying, you just want to reconnect with your family. You don't want to start talking about your problems.
20 minutes here, or what might even stretch into be 20 hours, and divert you to something else before you can see your family.
Yeah, no. So usually, so my husband actually had said, I'll wait right here until you figure out what you can do. And they did. They followed the protocol with the military. So my husband's was given 3 or 4 medications and some talk therapy for a while. And that was kind of where it had ended there. It's a little bit more regulated within the military itself, but once he went to Fort Polk, his PTSD symptoms became increasingly more evident to me, to those around him, to the people he was working with. And, you know, he was in a different type of unit. It wasn't a combat unit, so it was a little bit more challenging for him too. And then, you know, Fort Polk, I mean, I like Cajun food now, and I crab now, but it's a pretty remote location. So that didn't help either. So, and then when he left the military, that's when the medication and the civilian providers really, what I think, over-medicated him a lot. So that was sort of his beginning stint of treatment. And this is somebody who is willing to get treatment. This is somebody who wants treatment, you know.
You made a comment there about you had seen the symptoms. What were the symptoms? What were you seeing at that time?
From, you know, sleeplessness to flashbacks to anxiety to just a disconnection. I mean, any spouse or I guess child of a veteran PTSD just knows you know, fireworks are no longer an option. You know, the mall is no longer an option. Just really retreating from society, retreating from things that they previously enjoyed. And what's interesting about PTSD is that it doesn't get better with time. And I do hear a lot of people that always hope that, you know, it will heal itself. It's something, but it's actually argued by some of the thought leaders in the veteran community that it's one of the mental health, you know, issues that actually throughout the years gets worse and worse. And I think that's why we see so many challenges in our veteran community. Absolutely. So I mean, I could go on, and I think those symptoms of PTSD are so shared by so many people. I mean, you know, just one wrong trigger can catapult, you know, an entire evening. And so I don't get to do any of the things that I enjoy. I'm sorry.
You were still on active duty. You talked about, and I read the initial blog that you wrote that is posted on the, I don't remember if it's the Army Center for Excellence, but it's posted on one of the DA sites, and where you talk about your experiences with your husband coming back, and you're at a 4th of July celebration, and the fireworks are sending them the wrong signals. I'm searching for the right term here, but it was bothering them. So your husband and the other soldiers, you wrote, couldn't enjoy the ceremony that was meant for them, and they had to go inside.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, fireworks, you usually associate them with the 4th of July. It's our nation's independence, and the one group of people that those fireworks are for are the ones that don't don't appreciate them and they just want to go inside. It's true. It just, to them, it puts them immediately back in that combat zone. And, you know, my husband went to Walter Reed inpatient for a few weeks, and he had some great experiences there. We can talk about that. But once he left the military, it was very challenging. Civilian providers, you know, have a lot to catch up on. I mean, they all do. We all do. It's a collective knowledge that we have to gain. But, I mean, we were on Klonopin, Xanax, Lunesta, Wellbutrin, Cymbalta, Ativan, Prezicin, Seroquel, Lucky Charms, everything. You know, and that the only way the clinicians and providers could assure me that my husband wouldn't die from these medications was he would just take them every couple hours, so he wouldn't take them together. So that was my only reassurance, which
wow.
Very alarming. You know, and the biggest problem with PTSD, this is again someone who wants treatment, are the barriers to care. So what are the barriers to care? We've got, you know, the stigma in the military and the civilian world, you know, the physical challenges of getting to the VA, difficulty navigating complicated health systems, you know, lack of resources, information, civilian providers, you know, being not informed on the culture of the military as a whole, which is a huge barrier for everybody to care. Numerous failed treatment attempts, just a lack of hope, concerns of security clearance, background checks, lack of support community. I mean, we can go on and on why veterans aren't getting the treatment that they so desperately need.
All those things that you ran through there, what was it that made you and your husband different when you said he is someone that wanted to seek treatment, and you put yourself out there. You write a blog about your experiences. You talk about your husband coming back with a 1,000-yard stare, and that's not the normal thing that, and I don't mean normal in a bad way. That's not the usual thing that you see from a spouse or from a soldier that comes back. So what's different that makes you guys want to, well, for him to seek the treatment and then you to be out there talking about what's going on?
You know, I'm not exactly sure if it's fair to say we're different. I've spoken to so many spouses, and the sentiments and the desire to help their spouse, you know, going through whatever they're going through is universal. It's universal. It really is. And in many instances, I think the veteran is less willing to communicate to their significant other or support system, more so than the other way around. And obviously, that's always varies. But I think that we're both fortunate in that we decided we were going to take a situation that's a negative situation, and please know for sure that the struggle is real and every day for both of us and our new baby, even though she doesn't know yet. But
no, that's something that you're hitting on there that I think is very, very important, because I have talked to a number of couples who feel like their experiences are abnormal, and the interaction between them, the way that it's gone, is abnormal, and that there's something wrong with them. And like you just said, it's a daily struggle. So it's something that a lot of people that are in your situation are going through the same thing. It's not, there's nothing wrong or nothing weird with them. And that's got to be reassuring to other people to hear that message.
Absolutely. And the phrase that isolation kills and community heals has never been more important to remember and repeat. And so, you know, spouses and veterans that are willing to work together. I mean, my husband and I, the reason that we did this and what, you know, quote unquote makes us different is just a desire to share your story, and sharing your story is incredibly healing. So we always encourage people to do that, and we need them desperately to do that with us too. So we can talk about that also.
Yeah, you sent some notes over to me earlier about combat stress, the veteran and the family. You want to talk about combat stress?
Yes. So combat stress, so post-traumatic stress disorder, you know, we can talk a little bit about, you know, what it is, and we did a little bit. We talked a little bit, you know, about the barriers to care. But what's very interesting, and something that I don't think people think about when they think about PTSD, they think about it as a veterans issue. You know, and then that's actually in itself, in very many ways, inaccurate, because there are people that have PTSD from all walks of life. But it's actually a public health issue. So, for example, especially as the lines between war and home become so blurred, where soldiers are, and soldiers I say because my husband was in the Army, but you know, military will go into a combat zone and then come back to stateside. to their families, their homes. So in Iraq, my husband was seeing little children in the streets running around, grabbing at his weapons, you know, and saw children possibly in a not a very positive light. And then he's coming here and he sees, you know, other people's children running around Starbucks. And it's just, it's, you know, that's not a veteran's problem. That's a societal situation we all have to focus on. I mean, these people are coming back into our society and reintegrating back into our community, and we have to make that transition something achievable for them. So when these lines are blurred, so, you know, as and my husband always says, from the time when people could throw a rock at one another and people were arguing, there has been PTSD. Mm-hmm. Combat stress is not a new thing, obviously. There has been a lot of headway to that stigma that unfortunately has been at the detriment of so many veterans that have come before us, and because of them and all of the things that they've been through, the soldiers that are coming back now have a very, very different experience, but still, you know, collectively all of them face challenges that are similar when it comes to PTSD and treatment. But so, you know, when you had the Spartans, they had a, you know, several 100-mile travel back by foot, and they could decompress and they could talk about things, and they probably also died very early. And now, you know, you have a quick hop flight back, and you know, you're back in line at the Starbucks, just like you were overseas in Green Mountain with, you know, brain matter and blood on your feet, and now you're doing the same, except you're getting a latte down here in Leesburg, Virginia. Mm-hmm. And it starts to become a public health concern issue, and that reintegration becomes everyone's responsibility, and also it's a communicable disease, so we really need to think about that as well.
What do you mean when you say it's a communicable disease?
So actually I have some statistics from the VA. So they say as a communicable disease, so it affects the whole family, because it's not just the veterans' burden to bear. So 38% of Vietnam veteran marriages failed within 6 months of the veteran's return home from Southeast Asia. I thought that was absolutely alarming. The rates of divorce for veterans with PTSD are 2 times greater than for veterans without PTSD. Now, these are statistics that are based on the, you know, the premise that PTSD is one of the most unreported things. That's the problem. So if these are the statistics with the little information we have, it's alarming to think what else. About half the partners of Vietnam veterans with PTSD indicate that they had felt on the verge of a nervous breakdown. So that's a communicable disease. You know, spouses, children, they are getting PTSD. You know, it's sympathetic PTSD many times, and some of the providers that we talk with always do talk about that, and you have to treat the whole family as a whole for sure.
I'm looking to see, we have some listeners out there, I'm just looking to see if there's any comments that have come in yet, and I don't see any. So I think that's really interesting when you talk about PTSD as a communicable disease. What do you think about the conversation about dropping the D, post-traumatic stress, as opposed to post-traumatic stress disorder?
You know, I don't know how I feel about that. We've gone back and forth about that as well. So there are 2 arguments. PTS, you know, the D, is it making it a disorder? You know, just refocusing the stigma. And then I can't help but think of George Carlin, who says you can shorten it and you can change it and you can do this and that. And, you know, I'm not sure what it achieves, because I think he said it where it was, you know, combat fatigue and battle fatigue, and then combat stress, and then, you know, I think it's less about what we call it and more about what we do for it. What is your opinion on that, Carl?
I think that it goes back to what you talked about at the beginning, some of the barriers to care, and if you are a soldier, you don't want to have a disorder. Mm-hmm. I had a hip replacement a year ago, and over this last year I've been rebuilding myself back into an exercise program where I can start to get stronger again. And when you work out real hard, your muscles hurt. You know, as you work that lactic acid through your muscles, you get that burning, that pain that lasts for a couple of days. Well, I didn't have exercise disorder. I had pain because of what I did, and I think, to a certain extent, it might be oversimplifying it some, but I like to make things real simple so I can understand them. Post-traumatic stress, you went through an event that is above and beyond the normal human experience. You are going to, it's not may you are going to have some of these things, whether it's difficulty sleeping or whether it's noises that startle you or becoming agitated or on alert, not understanding why that's happening. Those things, I think, are nearly universal to anybody that's been through those kind of situations. So it's not a disorder. It's totally normal for that to happen. And I think I agree with the line of thought that says that when you label something a disorder, well, I'm not going to admit that there's anything wrong with me. I don't have a disorder. Because then you lose your chance to command, or you lose your chance to do the things in the military that you wanted to do. You were talking about going through the questionnaire on the way back. Have you seen this or that? For crying out loud, you're talking to a combat soldier that's just been in a combat zone for 12 or 15 months. Of course they have. So why even ask the question? Assume that they have, and set up the training and the reintegration so that they have to go through that stuff, and don't make it optional.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And they actually, I think one of the things that they're looking into is really focusing on the NCO and the role of educating that group of immediate leaders to being sensitive about PTSD, and obviously officers as well. It's just really something. My husband's very focused on going to junior ROTCs and going to West Point hopefully in a couple of weeks to talk. Because you have to start at the beginning and weave that into the culture and fabric of our American military, I think. So if that means dropping the D, then you let me know. You send me an email, Carl, and I'm with you. We'll start it.
I think it's a great discussion to have. Okay, so some of the other things you talked about: treatment, integrative medicine, community. Talk to me about that.
So one of the things, and I'll tell you a really, really quick story. I live right outside of D.C., but I'm from New Jersey originally, and D.C. has a beautiful Vietnam Veterans Memorial, but New Jersey has a spectacular one, I think. Adrian and I were taking a tour with a Vietnam veteran who was explaining this amazing story behind this gorgeous shell-shaped amphitheater, which is a tribute to the veterans of Vietnam. And this gentleman was kind enough to walk us around and tell us a little bit about what everything had represented. So every different aspect of this museum represented a different part of the war. So there were a row of bushes with red berries, which represented the bloodshed of the war. And then there was another row in a circle that was a row of tangled thorn bushes, and it represented the violence. Only one way into the memorial and one way out, just like entering the war, and then the walls depicting the names of all the people that died in New Jersey is written on reflective stone. So when you see yourself, when you look at the words, when you look at the people's names, you see your reflection alongside the names of the people that died. The circular amphitheater has a ramp that spirals around the inside, providing wheelchair accessibility to the memorial. And here's the thing, the ramp is intercepted at several spots with staircases in order to make sure that even if you don't take the ramp, you have to cross paths with one, which I thought was pretty powerful. And then probably the most powerful of all is that there's a statue in the center, and the story of the day that they placed that statue in the memorial, and it's comprised of 3 figures in bronze. So the 3 figures were very heavy. They were a little bit larger than life, just like the American mentality during the war. There were 3 pieces. So there's a soldier that's reaching up up to these 2 soldiers, and he's injured and he's reaching upwards, and these 2 other soldiers are reaching down and tending to his wounds. And when they had to put these soldiers down in the amphitheater, they placed down that first statue, and that statue that was reaching up. And then they went out to go collect the rest of them. And when they returned, they saw this huge memorial and one veteran in the middle of it, all reaching up by himself to nothing and to no one. And we don't want our veterans and our families to feel this way, and we're going to fight it with our last breath. And that's when we started looking at what we can do as a couple, as a community, as an organization. And we talked about that integrative medicine. So when my husband finally weaned himself off of all these medications with his primary care provider, we started exploring alternative and complementary medications and integrative medicine. So pulsed stimulation treatment, EFT, EMDR, acupuncture, massage, chiropractic care, small.
I'm going to back up a little bit because the EFT?
EFT, emotional freedom techniques.
What is that?
I would have to ask one of our providers here who does it. It's or what exactly goes into it, but it's a tapping.
To put you on the spot here.
No. Hey, I'm not a provider, but it's a tapping technique, and it's sort of like acupuncture but without the needles.
Okay.
A lot of this is very much focused on pressure points and things like that. And what's nice about EFT also is that you can do it yourself, because a lot of these treatments are a little costly if you're on your own, which is, something we are trying to work with. But EFT is something that you can learn to do and you can do on your own. And then massage and chirocare and
you said something right after EFT, EMDR or something?
EMDR. And that is oh my goodness, mobilization therapy. I will look that up and make sure that I'm saying it correct. EMDR is a practice in which a trained psychologist will actually take their finger and they will mimic rapid eye movement. As this is especially helpful for veterans that are not interested in articulating the trauma, but are still suffering from PTSD, which are many of them. So what they'll do is the therapist will move their finger around in a sequence that mimics rapid eye movement, and it's actually supposed to remap and rework where those memories and bad feelings and dreams are stored. And
so that's similar to what Dr. Carrie Elk does. I don't know if
Yes.
you guys have connected yet, but that her work involves a lot of that.
yes. So that's pretty fantastic, and it's a growing treatment, and I wish I could remember. I'm so sorry that I don't remember exactly. I know the first word is I, but EMDR, and there are an increasing number of therapists that are learning how to use that. And my husband's actually used it, and he found it quite impressive. I just have to keep reminding him to go back to all these things. I'm his case manager.
How does that compare to what the VA offers?
So the VA is, I'm not exactly sure which one of these types of treatment modalities they offer. I mean, the military and the government rather themselves are rather open to these types of treatments. The 3-week experience at Walter Reed involved all of these therapies, including yoga and meditation and all these other things too. So I think they're open-minded. I do think that there is a lack of information, and there are no collective resources to provide a toolkit for veterans so that they can open up their toolkit and say, okay, I'm going to do acupuncture, and then I'm going to do EFT, or I'm going to do this and that, And also there are cost barriers to that too, for sure.
I just got a note from my off-site technical guy that says turn down the input level a little bit. So done. He says we're getting some reverberation, so let's see if that works. Okay, so one of the things interesting that when I talk to veterans that have gone through the PTS treatment at the VA, it seems to be primarily an immersive experience where they want the therapist asks the veteran to talk over and over and over again about the experience, and so many of them bring that back. It just like destroys them because they come home and they're immersed back in the experience again. It's like you have a cut on your leg, you're gonna go pick the scab off it every 30 minutes and hope that it heals.
And they say that my husband actually did that yesterday, and he was very stressed out when he came home, and he had not done that one before. And actually, they're saying that that's very effective. It's exposure therapy. So you keep reliving and rehashing, and eventually I think you become, the idea is that you become desensitized and can kind of think it through, and I'm sure it's far more complex than that. And again, that might be a effective treatment modality for someone who is then coming home to a spouse that can, in some cases, be supportive, but I don't know how beneficial that is to perhaps our homeless veterans, that are, and what's the follow-up on that? It would be interesting to see, but I have heard of that, so I can keep you updated and let you know how my husband is doing that.
So you have talked about all these treatments and things. What do you find out there by way of support groups for spouses?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Support group for spouses, that's something that we are definitely trying to pull together. I've noticed that spouses are, and I believe that spouses are the gateway to treatment. many times they're the caregivers, not just for their families, but for the veteran that's come home, both male and female. There are a lot of female veterans that are completely on their own, and because they are not typically in combat situations, or not typically, I'm so sorry, historically, they are now really suffering alone in this, and that's something that has to be addressed. But their spouses as well. That's something that I'd like to see a little bit more of. Spouses sharing ideas and support systems are critical, because just as important as a community is for a veteran, it's just as important for the support system, because if one fails, the other fails. So
do you think that there's been maybe less of a focus on the spouse of a soldier that has PTS or PTSD than somebody who's lost a limb or an eye? Because you hear a lot about caregiver stuff. I had somebody that is one of the advisors to Gallant Few forwarded me the Elizabeth Dole Institute website, which has all kinds of stuff on there about caregivers. And even though I work with so many veterans and caregivers, I didn't know about this program. And part of it seems to be a lack of information to get to people that really need it. A part of it seems to be those that plug into a community of support. It's kind of a small, kind of a closed community of support. And it seems like spouses or caregivers of veterans that have PTS are not necessarily included in those kind of groups.
It's interesting. I actually, when my husband was down in Fort Polk, Louisiana, I was the FRG leader. So
force group, I know what that means.
Yes, and I actually felt a degree of isolation from other, not as much other spouses, but from other members of the community that we were in, primarily because of what I assume, or must have assumed, was their not understanding an invisible wound, especially because it was more of a non-combat related group. Mm-hmm. But absolutely, I mean, with the lack of understanding is the lack of support. Although when you talk to spouses that share that experience, it's very, very healing and very, very validating, because sometimes you're fed up and sometimes you're tired, and when you hear that somebody else feels that way, and that doesn't make you a bad person, and vice versa for the veteran as well, it's very, very helpful. So I had experienced that. So being kind of pushed out because of being in a situation that people don't understand, absolutely.
We've got a couple of minutes here before I'm going to have to conclude your portion of the show. Mm-hmm. Tell me about these retreats that you're working on.
So one of the opportunities that we want to provide veterans and their families in our pursuit to heal the veteran community as a whole, their small community and their family, is to provide them opportunities to participate in a variety of these treatments that we talked about that sometimes can be, a burden, whether it's, just distance and time. You have to take off work to go to these appointments. I know my husband does. It's very challenging. And then cost also. So what we're doing is we're working at the local level with providers that are nearby and willing and committed allies of veterans and their families, and providing acupuncture, massage, chirocare, all of these different treatments that we talked about during these retreats. Our first retreat in this area will be scheduled for next year, April, and our goal is to provide that at free of cost to the veteran and their family. It's a 5-day retreat, and it's to build their toolbox so that when they go home, we can really help them address the problem and find ways to come to healthy solutions. So the retreats are, part of it, and then the continued health care model and program is what's absolutely key. Finding a group that will contribute to the veteran and their family throughout the year, and just building that sense of community, and making sure that the spouses have a support network and that the veterans have a support network. It's something we want to pilot here, and we've done a few with our sister organizations down in Florida, but we really want to continue that and really focus on the ongoing care model up here. Another thing that we're doing that I find very healing, and I hope that other spouses and veterans do too, is what we are doing a series of PSAs, and I know you are as well. And we are trying to share stories. So if there are any veterans or any spouses out there that have a story that they want to share, whether it's in print, it doesn't have to be video, it could be audio, we can certainly talk about that, but we want to hear from them, because sometimes healing yourself is expedited by stepping outside and helping somebody else. And I've never ever met a veteran or a spouse.
That when we work with veterans, they have to do that.
Yeah, it's amazing. And spouses, if you help other people, it's an amazing thing. And I've been very happy to see that help other people. So, you know, and obviously we're always looking for business sponsorships for our retreats and for our programs. And obviously we can't do it without financial support. I
had two other questions. One was,
sure.
First, if somebody hears about this and wants to participate, how do they put their name on a list, apply for the program? How do they do that? And then second, how do you fund it, and how can people support you with that?
Absolutely. So the best way is they can go to our website, and our website is www.invisiblewound.org, and that's singular. And you know, they can email us through there. It's info@invisiblewound.org. They can email me personally. It's Diana, Diana @invisiblewound.org. We've got a team that's excited to talk to them and find different ways to connect them, and then certainly. You know, we can also receive donations through our website as well, and business sponsorships and collaborations, and we need them. I mean, we're trying to grow a coalition of people that are willing to help our veterans and our families, and that's certainly the first step. So reaching out to us would be great.
And I put the your website link on the blog that I wrote, and I'll make sure that that's updated. I think I got the S out of everything, except I can't change the title now that it's already been published. But please, let's stay in touch. Let's do some periodic updates on this show, and when you get closer to events, let me help you push information out so you can get support and people that want to participate in that.
That's wonderful. Thank you. We would love that.
Well, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for your husband's service and yours as well. And please do stay in touch. I look forward to meeting you.
Thank you. Likewise, sir.
All right. Take care.
Bye. You too. Bye.
All right, no, I don't want to exit the broadcast, but I am trying to hang up the phone because...
I'll hang up on you.
Okay. This is a new process for us, making sure that I do this without completely killing the show, and it looks like we're good to go now. So Diana Veseth-Nelson, it was very nice to have her on the show today. I am just about ready to pull up a second guest. We're going to do a short little talk about Desert Storm veteran issues, but before we do that, let me see. I'm trying to think if there's something that I did not play last time that I wanted to play this time. Yeah, let's do this. You guys may have heard me talk about the Spartan Pledge, but listen to Boone Cutler talk about this for a moment. Maybe we're not going to hear Boone Cutler talk about this for a moment. Just minor technical difficulties on that. Let me try a different file then.
This is Boone Cutler, author, warfighter, and host of Tipping Point. I want to talk to you for a minute, just 1 minute, and take the time to listen to what I'm saying. The American warfighter today commits suicide at a rate of 18 per day. That's 1 every 80 minutes. By the time you finish eating dinner this evening, a warfighter will have committed suicide. This is a tragedy. We're losing the greatest of this generation every day at an alarming rate. Currently on active duty, a warfighter commits suicide 1 every 36 hours. But there are ways to help, and you should help. You should help right now by contacting gallantview.org and find out how you can contribute and help stop, even eliminate, the warfighter suicide rate. This is a tragedy, and you can help right now by contacting gallantview.org. Do it now. Make it happen. All the way.
Hi, this is Carl's mom, and you are listening to the New American Veteran on the Vets on Media Network.
All right, now we're back. I'm going to call up Ron Brown. Ron is president of the National Gulf War Resource Center, and somebody's trying to call me while I'm trying to call him, so we're going to decline that. And I'm going to get his phone number again. So I know who does not listen to my show when they call me when I'm on the show. And I can give them a hard time later. Let's see if we can get Ron Brown here on the call. Hello, can you hear me? I see that you answered, but I'm not hearing anything. Is your phone perhaps muted or? Stay with me here for just a second because I'm wondering. Nope, everything is set, so audio should be coming through the headphones. I'm going to give you here one more quick chance here to see if maybe you can unmute your phone or something. And I'm going to hang up and I'm going to call you right back. See if we can do this again here. Apologize for the... Make sure I've got the phone number right. So Ron, as president of the National Gulf War Resource Center, is working on some of the presumptive conditions that Gulf War veterans are experiencing now.
Ronald Brown, can I help you?
Hey, Ron, Carl Monger, you are live on the New American Veteran.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. Hey, thank you for being on the show today. I was just starting to say as I was dialing you up that you are an Army veteran that went in the Army in 1989 and went straight into Operation Just Cause, and then following that Desert Shield, Desert Storm, where you were a paratrooper, first of the 504th Parachute Infantry out of Fort Bragg. And now you have... you are committing your time to helping other veterans because you have had your own 13-year-long claims battle with the VA. And tell me about, if you would, why are you doing what you're doing, and why is it so important?
Well, so many of our veterans have a difficult time getting VA compensation for claims they suffer, for injuries they suffered from while they were in service. Myself, I also went through the same process that a lot of other veterans go through. I know how frustrating it can be, how hard it is to prove, especially a lot of the unseen injuries, especially the ones that we deal with, like Gulf War illness, TBI, PTSD. We have really tried to assist these veterans any way we can, either through providing education, advocacy, or support for these veterans suffering from these complexities of the modern warfare. Yeah, tell me about the Gulf War syndrome. We hear news articles here and there on it, but what is that? Essentially, they don't have a clue of what it is. They think it's a lot to do with neurological issues based on exposures that these veterans suffered from while over in Operation Desert Storm. Back in '97, the DOD sent letters out to veterans who were near Camisea, which was a massive bunker complex that demolitions were performed on. And in those demolitions, there was a whole bunch of 122 millimeter rockets that contained sarin and cyclosarin, which are nerve agents. And the presumptive conditions that we are pushing for, some of these conditions are related to the VA's own studies that they have conducted, showing that the veterans who were in those exposure areas when those demolitions were going on were twice as likely, the first one said twice as likely to develop brain cancer. And the follow-up study on that, in I think 2009, it said they were 3 times more likely. A friend of mine named Lester Simmons that we joked around with him a couple of years after Desert Storm because for an unexplained reason, I don't think the doctors had any clue why, he lost every hair on his body. He didn't have eyelashes, he didn't have hair on his head, in his ears, none. And we were at his house relaxing one evening, and he opened up his closet. He wanted to show off his war trophies, and he had a Iraqi helmet. And he held it out to me and said, "Hey, go on, put it on your head." And I'm like, you don't have any hair, I'm not putting it on my head. But then a few years later, he passed away.
and I think he's probably a casualty of what you're talking about.
Well, I can tell you now, I've lost veterans that were directly in my unit from the brain cancer. The brain cancer these veterans are getting, it is in the cancer family, but it is of an undiagnosable type of cancer. They can't say it falls into a certain specific type of cancer, and brain cancer itself is very rare. But to get that type of cancer where it doesn't fall into one of the known carcinogen families, that's even rarer.
So how does somebody know? I mean, what kind of symptoms does somebody that may be experiencing this Gulf War syndrome, what do they have?
A lot of the syndromes that a lot of the veterans experience are like joint pains, fatigue, severe fatigue. They have a lot of migraines. They have a lot of neurological issues, immune system problems. It's a vast, complex a range of ailments that are affecting these veterans, and basically there's no treatment for it. They try to treat each individual symptom. Currently, the 3 presumptive conditions that are for Desert Storm are chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, and irritable bowel syndrome.
And when you say presumptive, what does that mean for those who may not be familiar with that?
That means that these conditions are recognized as being related to service in Desert Shield, Desert Storm.
Do you have to have been in a particular part of the country, or did you have to be there for a certain number of days or anything like that for that to, I mean, is it like one day and then now you have irritable bowel syndrome and the VA says
Well, it's a little bit more than that. They still have to have the medical proof behind it, because the only way these conditions, like to give you an example, CFS, fibro, and IBS, they are diagnosed conditions, but they are of unknown origins. They don't know exactly what causes these conditions. The only way you can get the diagnosis for these conditions is after your medical professionals have ruled out every other possible cause for these conditions.
Okay. So it's not automatic walk in the door, A equals B, and you get a rating?
Absolutely not. It is very, this undiagnosed illness claims are some of the hardest claims to have approved.
So after you go through everything else and there's no way they can pin it to anything else, then if you've been in country and you have that condition, then it's presumptive?
Absolutely.
If you've lived that long?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so what are you doing? You have a campaign that's going on right now to add to the presumptive?
Yes, sir. Currently, we sent Congressman Kaufman in the House of Representatives a letter full of research, about 9 pages, to back up what we were saying. And he drafted a letter off of our letter and sent it to Secretary Shinseki, who can make these conditions presumptive on his own, based off of the research.
He can just sign a piece of paper and
whether
it's
or not
done?
he will is a different story. We're asking for brain cancer, lung cancer, and migraines to be included in the current presumptives for our Desert Storm veterans.
How does somebody help with that?
Well, we have a letter that we've asked veterans to send to the Secretary directly, and basically asking him to please make these conditions presumptive based off of the research and evidence that's been presented to him from Congressman Kaufman and the research that we put together that the VA has done on these. And the letter actually has the address on it for the Secretary, and the followers of your program can either go to our website and print the letter, open it up and print it, and then sign it and send it in, or if you have a place where you could link it to your site, Carl,
I will
would
do
be
that.
great.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that having a large number of veterans that send a letter like that to Secretary Shinseki, you think that'll make a difference?
That's basically the only way we ever get anything accomplished, either through contacting our elected officials or contacting the secretary on these commissions. Sadly, that is the only way that we get stuff done.
Yeah, tell me a little bit. We've got just about another minute. Tell me more about the National Go4 Resource Center. What do you guys offer?
We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We have 2 websites that we run for veterans to go and get information. We have a self-help guide that helps veterans with these type of claims.
And your website, you can go ahead and tell us the website.
Yes, it's www.ngwrc.org. That's our main site. And we just currently got up and running www.ngwrc.net, which is our sister site. It's called Operation Forgotten Warrior, and it deals with the issues that our Desert Storm veterans are facing with the VA at the VHA level, and also benefits.
Ron, thanks for what you're doing. Thanks for your service.
Thank you very much for yours, and thank you for the time to come on and help reach out to our veterans.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do my letter and send it this afternoon.
Thank you so much.
All right, Ron, thank you for being on the show.
Roger, take care.
All right, I think I figured out why I couldn't get that file to play earlier, because it actually is an MP4, and I got to play MP3s, but I could have sworn that I redid that so that we could listen to Boone talk about the Spartan Pledge, but it looks like not. So let me see, what else do I want to... Oh, a message that I did not get a chance to play last week. This is Ranger Chris Bemis, who's become a friend of mine. We served in the same Ranger Battalion, but about a generation apart, and he has a special message for you.
What do you stand to lose when you make the choice to drink and drive? Your career, the people that you love the most, your ability to walk, your ability to use your hands. The list goes on and on. What do you stand to gain when you make the choice to not drink and drive? You stand to gain everything. I made the choice to drink and drive, and that's some of the things I lost. Learn from my mistakes. Make the right choice. Don't drink and drive. Rangers lead the way.
I'm looking real quick here to see if there's anything else that I meant to cover that I didn't, because usually as soon as I get off the line, I'm like, uh-oh. There is one thing. We've started expanding our Salesforce.com program. If you go to gallantfew.org/get-involved, you're taken to a sign-up form that isn't real pretty right now, but it's very functional. And we take that information when somebody signs in. You know, I didn't talk about this at the beginning of the show either, so I'll do a Gallant Few commercial here real quick. We believe that the best way to avoid issues in employment, issues in homelessness, issues in PTSD, you name it, is by one-on-one contact with another veteran that is very similar in service background and experience to you. And when you connect those two veterans together, you prevent the biggest killer, in my opinion, of a soldier not on the battlefield, and that is isolation. When you come back to your community and you're not able to find a job and you're not able to talk to anybody that understands you or that respects you and the service that you gave to the country, then that can take you down a path that ultimately can end very badly. But if we can connect you, the transitioning veteran, with somebody who served in the same unit, served in the same branch of the service, went through some of the same training, maybe had similar combat deployments, maybe even similar wounds, maybe somebody's got PTS and the other one does also, that gives you somebody that you can immediately open up with and talk and trust, because somebody who, in my experience, somebody who was a private when I was a captain in the Army now is a command sergeant major, and somebody leaving the military after 4 or 5 years may have served in the battalion with that command sergeant major. So there are threads of service that run through these units. that we as a collective veteran group have not taken advantage of. That's one of the big things that Gallant Few does, is try to take advantage of that. So one of the things through the Salesforce.com implementation to pull back into what my initial thought was, is we have a new way that you can support Gallant Few. And if you go to clickandpledge.com, that's click like CLICK, AND pledge, PLEDGE.com, clickandpledge.com, search Gallant Few in the little search block, and you can set up your own little fundraising campaign and support us there. Throughout the year, we try not to do a lot of fundraising, and we won't turn away anybody that wants to support us, but our big fundraising event is Run Ranger Run, which is going to kick off around October for Run Ranger Run 2015, which will happen next year. I think that about does it for today. Please share the word. Join us next week if you'd like to appear on the show, or if you are interested in sponsoring this show, email tnav@gallantfew.org. That's Tango November Alpha Victor @gallantfew.org. If you want to contact me, my email and my phone number in the top right corner of that webpage. I'm going to have to change my mobile phone pretty soon because I'm switching my Kansas number over to the Texas number, but you'll find it on the website either way. God bless those rough men and women who stand ready in the night to visit violence on those who would do us harm. And always remember, one for the Airborne Ranger in the sky. That beautiful rendition of Taps is a public domain recording created by a soldier or employee of the United States Army, and as such is not eligible for copyright protection in the United States. Kenny Thomas' song Send Me is used by permission of Kenny Thomas. All other work or recording is original work or used by permission. This has been a presentation of Gallant Few's The New American Veteran on the Vets on Media Global Network.